Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of
Faith Forged in Fire.
There you go, Chief. Faith Forged in Fire. He wasn't
starting us off with a quiz.
He wasn't ready for that one. Hey, this is 2 in a row for us after our little hiatus, and it's good to be back. I think we have a fun one today. So if you're a firefighter, you might. Should I tell them this? Maybe I don't want them to quit, but maybe it's going to seem a little boring. I hope it's really neat. I hope it draws some good spiritual, helps you look at a passage of scripture differently and brings some life to it. But we have people who listen to this podcast who are not firefighters. They're not first responders. Mm-hmm. They've never been in a structure fire. So hopefully this helps educate them a little bit as we work through a passage of scripture and illustrate how it works, how that very closely mirrors a structure fire crew. And this was your idea, so you're teaching today.
Raggy.
So Rich and I were doing a Bible study together, and we were talking about the body of Christ, 1 Corinthians 12, and you said, hey, this reminds me of a structure fire crew, and you started to list all of these different things. And I said, well, I think we just found a podcast topic. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to take us to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and we're just going to read a few verses here so that you guys can be reminded of what it says. Starting in verse 12, it says, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though they are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and were all made to drink of one Spirit. The body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing? Where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body." And we understand this in the church context. So I serve, my part of the body is I serve as the pastor. That doesn't make me any better than anybody else.
Your incident command.
Yikes. So, but the point being, and I've talked about this before, is, I'll be sitting in my office on a Sunday morning, and somebody will be outside shoveling the sidewalks. I'm preparing to preach. They're shoveling the sidewalks. They are no less important than I am, right? Because that needs to be done. They are serving. They are doing what God has called them to do. And if people can't get in the church, what good is it going to do me to preach? And really, this passage is very much like a fire scene. You were right. So you take the top. There are varying areas, and we'll walk through this. But just in my mind, as I think about this, I don't necessarily. Incident command is not a favorite of mine. It's not a place.
I'm gonna say I can't understand why it'd be anybody's favorite thing, but it's a necessary thing in the service to keep the chaos to a minimum.
And some people enjoy it. I mean, some people take that in a career department. A battalion chief, generally that they know that is their job on every single fire, right? So they willingly take that. We would look at incident command and say, man, that's important, right? It's tough to run a good fire scene without incident command. We would also look at it and say, well, it's impossible to put a fire out if you don't have somebody on the nozzle, right? Mm-hmm. And in my case, where do I want to be? I want to be on the nozzle, especially if there's an interior crew. I want to be inside fighting fire, but either way, I want to be on the nozzle. Where I don't want to be is in our context. Now, some people, they may not even understand this, but in our context, we have, well, they're technically tenders. Some people call them tankers, water supply, right? A truck that hauls water, and that water has to come from somewhere.
Right.
Often, and especially in your case, you have dry hydrants. The only way to get water out of that hydrant is to set a crew there with an engine, something that's going to suck that water out of the lake or the creek, wherever it is,
right,
and put it into the tanker. So now you don't even see the fire. At least the guy hauling the water gets to the fire once in a while.
Right. Yep.
You don't even see the fire.
Right.
However, if you're not there, the guy on the nozzle does not have water.
Right. And if that guy that's at the tank or at the dry hydrant doesn't know how to get water,
I still don't have water.
You still don't have water. I mean, you can sit there all day long if you don't know how to run the pump.
Right.
So he, at that point, is the most important person of the scene.
So I think it's a really good analogy. So let's walk through kind of for the fun of somebody, somebody who maybe doesn't understand everything that goes into a fire scene. And let's go. We'll say for the sake of running this scenario in a sense, as we would in training, there's no hydrants. So we have to bring water in a truck. So we'll use that. Rich, let's walk through who are the place people. If you drive by and you see a bunch of firefighters, you're like, well, that just looks like chaos. And it might feel like it. But in a well-run scene, every person has their job, and there's a lot of jobs. So let's just start from the top. Let's start with incident command and just kind of work our way through. What are some of the jobs?
Oh, you got incident command. Then if you've got an interior team.
It's pretty obvious, but what's incident command for somebody who might not know?
They're basically, for lack of better words, the overall boss
of the whole scene.
They're responsible for everything.
Right. So when they get on scene, they tell dispatch. In your case, Solon Car 1 has command.
Right. You do the 360. You figure out what needs to be done. In the back of your head, you're coming up with plan A. And while you're figuring out plan A,
that goes away. That doesn't.
Right. While you're figuring out what plan A is, you're already figuring out that plan A is going to fail.
Yep.
If things go well, it's not, but you got to figure that out.
Yep.
So while you're figuring out plan A, you know that it's going to fail. So you're coming up with plan B. And while you're figuring out plan B, you're also trying to figure out what plan C is.
Right.
While trying to maintain. So now you've got the second due engine coming in.
You're trying to figure out, because in our world, there's not enough people showing up from our fire department often. Now, depending on the size of the fire, but often there's not enough people showing up. So you also have to think about what personnel you need, which fire department's closest, who do I need to call? Because you don't just tell dispatch, oh, I need more help. That's not how that works.
What time of the day is it?
Right.
Is it 9 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock in the morning? Because that makes a huge difference also.
Fire department A might have more people during the day, and fire department B might have more people during the night. Like, you have to know all that stuff.
Right.
Yep.
So basically, like during the day, I would be the nozzle man, the incident commander, the engine operator.
Right.
Really. Yeah. And then
in our world. Yep.
Right. So when the second truck gets there, then generally somebody goes like, he's in command and he shouldn't be on the nozzle.
And they
come and take it. So then eventually you'll get yourself an engine operator. And if it gets to be something big and you need tenders.
So let's back up a little bit here. So we have incident command.
Yep.
And then we have the part that everybody kind of talks about or would understand. You have people on the nozzle.
Yep.
There's always two. Well, depending on if you're going in or out, but if you're going in, there's always two. You have the nozzle man and the backup.
Yep.
The backup plays a different role than the nozzle man and needs to know what that role is. I've been on fires with a backup that I don't know well, and I don't like that because my backup is my eyes. They're looking at things that I can't see because I'm on the nozzle.
Right.
And so that plays a whole different role. So you got, let's just say there's one line just for the sake of this. There's somebody on the nozzle. There's a backup.
Yep.
They go in the fire. What has to be at the door?
2 guys for backup.
2 guys with backup with another nozzle. And they're sitting there waiting in case something goes wrong.
Right.
Yep. And then you get enough help from there. And what's the next crew you set up?
You should be setting up RIT.
RIT. Yeah. RIT or RIC, whichever. Rapid Intervention Team or Rapid Intervention Crew.
Yep. In New York, they call it a FAST.
So this is another job that I don't particularly care for because you can't do anything.
It is the most boring job that you hope you never have to do.
Right. So the idea is it's a rapid intervention crew. So they get all their tools ready. They get everything ready. You're not even supposed to talk to them. Like to do it technically. No. I mean, we don't always do it technically, but you're not even supposed to talk to them. They sit there listening to the radio, waiting for the worst words ever.
Yep.
And they're just waiting for a mayday. If somebody's inside, they know that's their job. If something goes wrong, they're going in to try to get them out.
So they're sitting there watching a bad situation.
Yep.
And it just got worse.
Yep.
And now they've got to go into
right. So you either do absolutely nothing or you go in the absolute worst ever scenario.
Exactly. And I've done it. Never had a mayday called while I was on it. But you're sitting there going like, I am so bored.
Yep.
And I hope that this is how it is the rest of the night. I wish I was doing something else.
Exactly.
But man, I hope I don't have to do what I'm here
to do. Yep.
Yep.
So you've got your RIT, FAST, whatever you call it. You got that team. What about, it's getting hot. We need a vent in the roof. Mm-hmm. So now you got a roof team. You send some guys up, get a ladder up, some guys on the roof, cutting a hole. They can't do that anytime they want because it might make it super duper hot downstairs.
Yep.
Same with maybe breaking some windows. Like it's all got to be timed. Synchronized so that it doesn't. So when the conditions changed inside the building, inside the structure, those guys are ready for it.
Right.
Right. So now you've got guys on the roof, and the more people you add, the more people Incident Command is worried about, by the way. So now we add another person.
Well, you should have a ventilation officer.
Yep. A ventilation officer. You also add a safety officer. And again, that's his whole job is to continue to walk around and be another set of eyes for you.
So that's 3 officers you got.
That's 3 officers. Probably
you got a RIT team leader.
And depending on how the fire's going, you might have a crew on A, B, and C sides, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's how we identify the sides of the house. Possibly an officer on each of those sides. Right. It starts adding up quickly. That has not even got us water yet.
Right.
So now what do we need?
Well, you hope you remembered that you got enough tenders coming that you've got water.
Right.
But if not, then you're going to have to, it depends. Sometimes you just fall back onto you hope the tenders know where to go to get water.
Right.
But generally you're going to set up a water supply officer.
Yep. You've got to know where the closest place is to get water. You get a water supply officer. You make sure there's somebody there that can pump that water. And then you also need, the water supply officer is really, he's making sure that the guys in the house never run out of water.
Right. And like a fire that we had, for example, one of the surrounding fire departments did that, set up a water supply officer. And I couldn't tell you how many tenders we went through because he never had to communicate with me. He took care of all of it. They set up the hydrant, they set up the tanks. And in that case, had we been getting close to running out of water more often, then he probably would have got a hold of me and said, hey, we need more tenders.
Right.
And then as commander, I would have got a hold of dispatch and said, hey, I need a tender from here or a tender from there or whatever. But that's a big help to have a good water supply officer. I mean, it's like you're saying, it's just about as much fun as sitting at the dry hydrant.
Right.
But he's an important person. Because water is like gold on a house fire. You got to have it.
Right. And then you get all the guys that are running the water back and forth. And they're running emergency because we need the water as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's never fun to drive emergency.
Mm-mm.
And they're doing it multiple times through a fire. Also with several thousand, depends on the size of their tanker or their tender, several thousand gallons of water, which is dangerous. Put that on icy roads, whatever. Right now they're doing that. They're dealing with cars that are parked all along the side of the road at the fire, all kinds of things.
The fire buffs.
Right. All of this is happening and not one of those. I mean, so let's look at it this way. You talk about possibly running out of water, right? In rural firefighting, I can't tell you how many times you get there, you knock the fire down. You're like, all right, this is feeling good. And all of a sudden, no more water.
Right.
and now you're waiting. You take out one of those guys running water, and that can be just what it takes,
right,
to lose the water, and the fire starts coming back.
So at that point, he's the most important guy on the scene.
He's the most important guy on the scene.
Right.
It might be the rookie that noticed I've got a kink in my line and I'm not getting the pressure I need while I'm hollering for pressure. Mm-hmm. He realizes there's a kink on the line. I want more pressure so I can hit this fire harder. And he realizes, oh, there's a kink in your line, and he fixes that. Who was important then?
Him.
Or when I need a tool yesterday because this is getting hot or whatever, mm-hmm. What do I need? I need that rookie that knows exactly where it is and can go get it as quickly as possible for me.
And when it comes to that, and that's something that I'm trying to teach people, is they don't necessarily have to be a rookie firefighter or, a guy that just got out of the academy. Like I've got medical first responders on my crew that don't want anything to do with a fire.
Right.
And it's hard to teach them that it is very important mm-hmm. that you also learn where this stuff is on the fire truck. Yeah, but I'll never use a Halligan. Maybe not.
Right.
But when PJ's on the nozzle and he says he needs a mm-hmm. Halligan, it's important that everybody knows where that stuff is. Now, you're the most important person.
Exactly. Yep. And that was, I think, the difference you've talked about when I came in at Solon, just kind of in different podcasts, the impression mm-hmm. that I made. I knew that I was going to have to work hard to gain the trust of the firefighters. And I knew that one of the things I could do was exactly that.
Right.
I made it a point to learn where everything on the truck was. And I let them know when I'm on the scene, and I had guys apologize. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you. Fine, yell at me. I don't care. Right. Yell at me that you need the Halligan, because now I'm there and I'm not yelling at you. I'm just raising my voice because I need it now,
right.
And so that was one of the things that I did. And I understood the value of that mm-hmm. I could be ready. And the more you learn, the more it looks to me like they're going to need a Halligan, or, they're getting ready to go on the roof. They're probably going to need a saw, or, I just heard Chief say, so I can do this to be ready for them, whatever. Right.
Yep. Everybody's job is important.
Exactly. And so when we think about all of that and we tie in the chaos mm-hmm. of a fire scene in every job that's important, and there's times that I get jobs that I don't necessarily want, but I have to do them. What I find is interesting is I don't like being a pump operator. That's not something I enjoy. I can do it. I don't enjoy it. But there are times that you have in a volunteer situation. I know career is different, but in a volunteer situation, you get a guy who has no desire to be on a nozzle. He has no desire to go in a burning building. Mm-hmm. But what he does have a desire to do is to drive the engine and operate the pump. And he's gotten very proficient at operating the pump. For me, the nozzle guy, that's who I want on the pump.
Right.
Because I know he knows if something goes wrong, what to do. If I ask for something, he can do it. Point being, it's same in church. God gives us, as it talks about here in 1 Corinthians, God gives us different gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Just as we each have different talents or desires or things that we're better at on the fire ground that we enjoy, our gifts are that way. There are things that people do that they love doing in church. Not necessarily my favorite thing. There's a lot of people who could never get up and have absolutely no desire to get up on a Sunday morning and preach. I love it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine not doing it. Right. So you start looking at the parallels of a fire scene in the body of Christ in church. And it's really amazing how closely those go together. The lesson in that is this: just as the guy sitting 3 or 4 miles away who never sees the fire, but he's responsible for getting water into the truck, just as important as he is, the person who maybe cleans the church or shovels the sidewalk or changes the light bulbs, you name it, right? That person is as vitally important to the body of Christ.
How about the ladies that take care of what do you call it? Daycare?
Right. Child care. Right. People don't even see them a lot of times, right?
You don't hear them. So what would it be if they didn't show up and all the kids were?
You would know they weren't there.
And it'd be pretty distracting. And they get an education while they're in the child care place.
Yep.
But so there's a job that's pretty, I think your wife does that.
Yep.
Pretty thankless job.
Right. But important.
No, I mean, she doesn't get a whole lot of glory out of that I have ever seen. I mean, she maybe does and probably doesn't do it for that. She does it to help out, but that's part that makes the church run.
Right. So we, just as in the fire service, we show up and we do what's put in front of us to do, and we fall in as part of the team. Mm-hmm. We do what we're supposed to do. Same as the church. Now, we can say another thing about this. You mentioned that when you, because a lot of times in your case, you're it.
For a little bit.
Sometimes,
sometimes, yep, during the day.
So if you get a structure fire, when you show up, you are the guy on the nozzle. You start the pump. You're the guy on the nozzle. Mm-hmm. You're at command. You're doing it all.
Right.
Same with church. One person shows up. What are they doing? They're doing it all.
Yep.
And in that case, obviously you would be happier to see somebody with a lot of experience show up. But when the rookie shows up, you're just as happy because you can at least have him do something.
Right.
So go to church and be involved, because you say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you can do something.
Right. If I came here and said, let me help, what is there to do? And you're like, well, obviously he's not going to do the sermon today. He's not going to take Pastor Mike's place on the guitar. He's not going to take Pastor Mike's wife's job and play the piano, but he could shovel the driveway.
Right.
Or he could shovel the sidewalk. And it's just like,
or
the
take
rookie.
Offering or do, yep.
Right. It's like if I'm pulling a hand line off from there and I don't even have the engine, ready to run water yet, and a rookie shows up, I can say, grab this hand line and take it to the very end.
While you go start the pump and get everything ready.
The pump running. Yep.
Yeah, there's so many things. And the more people that show up, the easier it is.
And it's a lot to do with the experience. And there's whether they teach you that in the fire academy or not, but if you watch what's going on,
mm-hmm.
Like that fire that we had, Cedar Springs comes rolling in behind me. What do you need? Well, we got fire. I need somebody to take the hand lines. I didn't have to tell them that I needed to hook their truck to our truck for extra water. They know it. They had the experience. They knew it had to get done, and all that kind of got set up.
But how did they get that experience? Because they continued to show up and find their place in the body. They found their place in the team.
Right.
The only way we're going to get that in church is by showing up, watching, learning. For somebody who's not familiar with church, it can feel like a first time on a fire scene, right? A little chaotic. Like, this is weird. What's going on here? But the more you are involved, the more it makes sense. The more you understand what's going on. Same with, I find it when I talk about church stuff, we use words and terms that somebody comes in new and they're like, I don't even know what they're talking about.
Theology.
Right.
I used to throw that around and they go like, oh yeah, I study theology. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
I'm just going to act like I know what that means. But
isn't that like being the rookie showing up on the first fire scene and somebody said, go tell IC and you're like, I see what's,
what do you see?
Right. Right. Or I need you on the B side, well,
right.
Or what's a Halligan or what's a, I need a fog. I need a nozzle on fog over here. You name it. Right.
The good one that always gets people is, PJ, go get me the tick.
Yep.
And you wouldn't bat an eye. You'd go get the tick.
Yep.
I say that to the next guy, and the first thing they do is they go like, okay. And they turn around and go like, oh, there's PJ. PJ, hey, Chief wants me to get the tick. What's the tick?
Yep.
Thermal imaging camera. It's the thing right on the dash by the seat. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, it falls back to
you gotta learn. You gotta
shoveling the sidewalk.
Yep.
Because if if I come here on a Sunday morning and I go, PJ, there's nothing I can do to help. What do you need? Could you shovel the sidewalk? Guess what? Next time I come to church, if it's the same situation and the sidewalk's not shoveled, I don't have to ask you.
Right.
I'll go shovel the sidewalk.
Right. And then it becomes the next thing and the next thing. Yep.
Right.
Well, and to that point, something that is more frustrating to a firefighter than anything is that you act like you know what they're talking about if you don't.
Yes. Please.
Ask. Yes. You tell somebody go get the tick and you don't know what the tick is. What if they didn't see me to ask me? Just say, hey, Chief, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're telling me. I'm new. And you're going to say, okay, it is the thermal imaging camera. Here's where it is. Right. Same in church. ask somebody like, hey, pastor was talking about this. I don't know what this word theology means. What, can you explain that to me?
Right.
Or I don't know what you mean when you say this or that. Like, how does this work? Right.
And you throw out the theology thing. It's kind of like the fire service. It depends on experience. Now, if there was a new person here that ran into me and went, hey, Rich, what is theology? And I go like, well, what you ask you or ask one of the other guys that are here, and they're much more experienced. They can talk your ear off. They know,
Right.
And it's like that on the fire ground. A rookie turns around and asks another rookie, what's a tick? And they don't know.
Right.
Go ask the experienced person and they know. So, I mean, there's that tie in also that, and the good thing is like here and the fire service, people are always happy to help.
Yeah.
I don't ask me a stupid question. I don't care. And if I come here and ask a stupid question, I know that nobody's going to care. It's like, how are you going to learn?
You're right. Exactly.
And that's the experience thing.
Yep. And then just fit in the team and do your job well. When I get stuck running the pump or if I get stuck on water supply, there's nothing I can do about that. I can be mad about it and I can do a bad job of it. It might actually end up hurting the guy on the nozzle if I do that. Right. I'll never see that. I'll never know that. And he might never know that it's because I have a bad attitude that I'm not on the nozzle. Instead, you go, okay, this is where I am right now.
Do the best I can.
I'm going to do the best I can because I matter. Yep. And I'm going to do the best I can preaching on Sunday. I'm going to do the best I can shoveling snow on Sunday, whatever it is.
Or cleaning the bathroom at the church.
Right.
It frees up somebody else. That's a better tool to do something else. That's something that I've tried to teach other up and coming people. It's like, sit back. If you want to be a leader, sit back sometimes. Ladder training is one that I do. I like to just sit back and not say much and observe. And you get some guys like you don't mind heights so bad. He'll go right up to the top of a two floor, ladder extended out there and he'll work and doesn't have any problems. And you watch the next guy and he's kind of drifting to the back of the group all the time. And when he gets up there about 6-7 rungs and he starts getting a little shaky in the knees. And it's like, I just try to make a mental note that PJ is going to be great if I got to put him on the roof for ventilation. Dude number 2, not so much.
Let's put him somewhere else. And it may be that you have to pull me off a nozzle and put me on the roof because the other guy is not going up, but he'll do just fine on the nozzle. And again, I have to say, all right, it's what's best for the team.
I've got the right tools.
Yep.
I just got the wrong, I've got the right tools in the wrong place. So we need to switch this up because it's crazy to put somebody that's afraid of heights on a roof. It's already dangerous.
So this is a cool thing about this. I told you we would have no problem finding content in this. So you talk about that in Ephesians where it talks about the body of Christ and the gifts. It says the gifts, God gave the gifts according to his grace. He's the ultimate, not to sound cheesy, but he is the incident command, right? So not only does he know his tools, he equips his tools in the way that he wanted them to be equipped, and he knows how to use them. Right. So where he put us, we just have to know God did that for what's best for his plan. Just like if you pull me off the nozzle and put me on the roof and I'd rather be on the nozzle. Okay. Rich knows the big picture. I don't know that he's doing that because firefighter B is never going to make it on the roof.
Right.
I may never know that. I just know that this is what I've been asked to do. I'm trusting incident command. I'm trusting God that this is what's best. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I did. It's just fun. It's fun to talk about, to see how firefighting ties in with biblical things.
Maybe next week we'll talk a little deeper into it.
Dive real deep.
Yeah, finance officer, logistics officer.
Oh man, all the stuff.
Sector officer.
Yeah. All of you've been in FEMA, haven't you? Hey, maybe next week we'll have a cool story to tell, because as you are listening to this podcast, we are not here.
Yes.
We are in northern Michigan attending volunteering, part of a team, EMS team. At a rally race.
Yep. We'll be unsung people that nobody will ever know that we were there, that they
another one of those where we hopefully stand around bored all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we're not bored, something really bad happened.
Well, and then all our past history might be, all those little things every time we've worked on a patient that might get called to that.
Hey, maybe we need to talk about that.
What's
Had
that?
that conversation before we turn the microphone on. How God uses things and builds us to the next thing.
Yeah.
That might be the next good conversation we can have, because that's perfect. That goes right along with the fire service as well.
Should we do it live
We could
from up there?
from up there.
It sounds really good with those cars in the background.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. And as always, especially if you're listening, watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this. Tell somebody. If you guys have been getting a blessing out of our podcast, tell other first responders or non-first responders and have them become a part of our community. And we'd love to hear from you. You can easily leave a comment on YouTube. So jump on YouTube on Faith, Forge, and Fire and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode or other episodes.
Yeah, give us some ideas on topics, because next week, if we don't have new topics, we might actually talk about the command structure.
Oh,
I might have to break it out.
Please give us some topics.
Yeah, please.
or donate a pillow.
Because I don't want to talk for a half hour for the incident command system.
Yeah, in all seriousness, if there's something you want us to talk about, or a question that you have, or anything, we would love to hear. Maybe it's not like a biblical question or faith forged in fire, but maybe you are not a first responder and there's something you have a question about. We'd love to do that, because part of our goal, we have really two goals. One is to help first responders take the next step in their walk with Christ. And second is to help those who are not first responders get a better understanding for that life. Yeah. So that fills that in.
Yeah. And it doesn't help on the podcast, but if there's people that go like, what's a Halligan tool? What's a tick? Mm-hmm. Let us leave a comment in YouTube.
We can answer that, or the other firefighters that are in there will answer that for you.
Yeah. Or I'll bring it.
Yeah.
I'll bring it in. I can't show you on the podcast, obviously.
But if you watch on YouTube, we can show it to you.
I can show it to you. And then if you're on the podcast, it gives you a good chance to maybe hop on over to YouTube and
follow along
see
there.
what it is. Yeah. If you ask for a New York hook, I probably won't know what that is, because that gets too customized.
Is it a New York hook or a drywall hook? I think a New York drywall hook is a little different than a New York hook.
Yeah.
Anyways,
pike pole's a pike pole.
we digress.
That'll be a comment.
Falling off the wagon.
There we go. Fell off the tailboard.
Yep. That's why we don't ride there. All right, guys. Thanks again. Really appreciate this. And we had fun. I hope you had fun. And talk to you in the next episode.
All right. Have a good one.